A little after 11 a.m. in the UK. Good morning and welcome to another episode of my review of this amazing book that I have been reading, The Prosperous Coach, which I started reading as a result of my being enrolled in the PQ Coach program with positive intelligence, and I have been having an amazing time. I just wanted to document this for the purpose of other coaches who are on their journey to being a fantastic and awesome coach like I am, and just seeing these insights and sharing these insights with you. So yesterday, I did a lot of reading. I was able to cover from chapter 2 to chapter 7 yesterday, and I'm going to share my insights with you. But so here's an amazing thing that also happened yesterday to me. I was on my way to the school runs, and like I have shared in my earlier episodes, anytime I'm doing school runs, I always love to listen to something. So in my very first episode and my second episode, I talked about just reading the appendix 1, where he talked about I think, was it in appendix 1 or was it chapters? So this was chapters 16 to, let me just be very sure of that. I want to be quoting this directly. So this was, yes, so in chapters 16 to 20, he talked about the step-by-step process for making a proposal. So I read that yesterday, and I've created a video on that, but I'm yet to post it. But as soon as I will get that edited and posted out. And again, I love to supplement my reading with watching Rich's videos on YouTube. So I went on YouTube and I looked for the video about the art of either the art of proposal or the art of prospecting, but it sounds like the art of proposal. And let me share my takeaway from that. It was amazing. That particular YouTube video was amazing. I think I should link it. Do I have I'll find out if I have the permission to link it, and I would link it. It was amazing because I really want you to watch that particular video. In that video, he talked about how not to get excited because now you're making a sale. Oh gosh. He was talking to me. You know how you're in your head. So you're talking to someone, and how you're in your head. If you're like me, you're in your head thinking, yes, I've got this. Yes, the person said yes, and this is going to be my client. He talked about slowing things down, about staying quiet. He talked about how you name your price. What does it take to work with you? It takes X to work with me for X long. He talked about how to do that properly. And, just reflecting back on how I had done that previously, I could oh my goodness, that's clearly why that didn't work. Now I see why that didn't work. And that was so enlightening for me. Because again, when you're a new coach trying to start out your business, you really want to know what's not working and why it's not working. Prior to now, I had a business coach, but this is the first time that I am in a coaching relationship with this group of awesome coaches with the positive intelligence, and I'm able to get feedback. And this for me is one of those feedback, just being able to slow things down. Like, there is no rush. There is no reason why you should be overly excited and you're then talking too much, going into the logistics of telling the client how they can work with you. Slow things down. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Then he talked about the vulnerability hangover. I didn't even know what that was, but I mean, obviously I felt it. I've seen people feel it, but I didn't know there was such a thing. Mind blown for me. So, it really accelerated my learning and my being able to understand by reading and also watching the YouTube video. So on my way to school, I was listening to the YouTube video and I got all of those amazing points. And he said something around, telling your clients, I would need you to, just be really sure of it. Just imagine you're passing the buck back to them instead of you. So previously, I would be giving you the 10,000 reasons why you need to work with me. But now, Rich's advice is they should They should overcome their own objectives by themselves. I had so many aha moments from just listening to that and then reflecting. Now, one thing that I took away, so yesterday as well, when he talks about you have now made your proposal, don't get excited and say, oh, check in hand, let's start. Give them that, give them that space to let it assimilate, let it sink that they've now signed up for this coaching. And in giving them that space, give them an assignment to do. And I then reflected. So when he said, give them an assignment to do, something to do, something to do to say, this is what they've taken away from the session with you, and let them send you an email. Put a date in the calendar for maybe 2 or 3 days later or same time next week so that you can have a follow-up conversation. I imagine myself being in a coaching conversation with Rich and him giving me an assignment. And then I said to myself, the assignment that I have given myself to start doing the cold emails, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Why is it that I have not taken action? Why am I still not taking action? So if Rich was my coach, he would fire me. He would literally fire me and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't work with you, because he said that is him trying to filter the kind of people he works with. And I'm like, okay, so I am going to be coached by him eventually. And if he then gives me an assignment, am I going to come to the call and not having done my assignment? I was like, no, Toyin, that's not you. You're an action-taking person. I pride myself in being an action-taking person. So yes, I've had a lot to do with kids, with school, with work and all of that. But you know what? We are taking action. So I then, because again, I live with lists, I then created a to-do list for myself yesterday. And I created 4 things. And by the end of yesterday, I had done 3 out of 4. I was very proud of myself because I said to myself, this is how I as a coach would assess if a client, a prospective client, was a fit for me. How am I not preparing myself to be a fit for Rich? That's not possible. Like, I am going to make sure I do everything. Anyway, so again, for me, it's very important to share both my reading from the book, how I have interpreted it into my situation, and my aspirations for the future. I'll tell you a bit more about that later on because of what happened to me later on in the evening. So whilst going to pick up the kids, I then said to myself, I'm going to make sure that I do most of the things on my to-do list, because let me imagine that this assignment was given to me by Rich and he's saying to me, you need to send me this. I'm not going to come back with excuses because I am an action taker. Now, that insight was super, super important because eventually when I then got home later in the evening and I started reading, so this would now be in chapter, I think in chapter 4. Let me just confirm that very, very quickly. Yeah, so this would be in chapter 2. That's the chapter that was written by Steve, where he says, without a client, you're not a coach. And then he gave, a bit of background about Rich and how, and let me read and how his impression of Rich. So let me read what I wrote directly from my book. It says, and that's it here in pencil, you can be brilliant, but a broke coach. And I said to myself, I think what keeps coaches poor or earning below potential is fear. And that's my takeaway from chapter 2. Fear of selling. I have fear of selling. Fear of, what if I don't make a sale? What if I make that proposal and it's not accepted? Fear of showing up as my authentic self. Fear of boldly being me. Now, I mean, you're watching this video and you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, she seems fearless. But that's probably not how I show up in a coaching or in a pre-coaching conversation or in a pre-coaching sales conversation with a prospective client. I'm not giving off this energy. And that's something that I am going to work on. So I wrote it here. It all starts with who you are. Like, how do you determine who are you? How do you determine that? It's not rocket science. You just sit down and think about it and say, who am I? Who am I? I am very used to being able to describe myself. I mean, you can describe yourself. So who are you? Who are you? Now, it's interesting that you can be great at coaching, but you can also be so broke. Interestingly, Rich was like that. So I said to myself, can you imagine? There was once upon a time when the only thing missing in Rich's life was income. And now he's quite success he's very successful. So that tells me that there's nothing wrong with being at the level where I am now, where I know exactly what I want to do, but the income hasn't matched up. That's a fantastic place to be in. So many great people have been in that position. Now I need to learn to be the cream of the crop. So for example, Steve says he thinks his best student ever was Rich. And now when they're doing seminars together, when Rich gets up to talk in those seminars, Steve doesn't leave. He takes out his notebook and learns. So I feel really honored to be learning from this book. I feel really honored. So back to the bit about identity, I then started reflecting to myself, so what am I? I want to be £100,000 a year coach. That's what I want to be, minimum. That's what I want to be. I want to be known for my impact. I want to be known for my impact. Now, he said something really interesting in one of the videos, whether in the 90-day money game, that you operate from, and I've heard Bob Proctor talk about this as well. You operate from your image. I'm not working towards, so I'll break that down for you. I have determined that I am £100,000 a year coach. That's how much I make from my coaching. I'm not working towards it. Yes, I know the finances haven't caught up, and I'm working towards it in the sense that I'm working towards the finances catching up, but I am operating from there. So what that means is that, how does £100,000 a year coach talk? How do they think? Who do they talk to? What do they know? Where are they hanging out? What kind of conversations are they having? What kind of network are they building? That's what I need to start doing. Now, it's not my business to want to, obviously like plot the how. If you've done any research into manifesting and things like that, yes, there's a bit where you have to work really hard, but then there's a bit where all you have to do is hold the image first in your mind. If it's difficult to hold the image in your mind, how is it going to happen? So I've gotten to that point where I know how to hold the image. And I really hope if you're a fellow coach watching this, that you can hold the image. Hold the image in your mind and operate from that image. So one of the things I noted, and this is quite funny, is I really need to slow down how quickly I talk. I know, pet peeve. Like, I really need to slow down how quickly I talk. Because again, am I talking so quickly because I'm unsure of what I'm saying? I really want to just say it and get it out of the way. Or am I deliberately enunciating every word that I say? Because I am so sure of it. I'm convinced of it. I don't need to talk quickly in order to convince another person of it. Can you spot the difference? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I wrote down in here, what skills, what tools, what network, what mindset do I need to have as a £100,000 a year coach? What rooms, what conversations do I need to be in? Where do I need to be operating from? And that was my takeaway from chapter 2. It was really, really interesting that, there is that fear and you have to acknowledge that fear. Now, here is what I told you was very interesting when I, had that simulation with myself in the car, when he talked about how he filters his own clients by giving them an assignment, getting them to get over their own objections by themselves. And I said, if I was a client or I was a prospective client to work with Rich right now, and he gave me an assignment, I'm not going to come back and say I have never done that. So that happened to me during the day when I was going to pick up the kids from school. Now, interestingly, later on in the evening, you know how all of the fantastic and amazing ideas happen to you in the bathroom? I had a brainwave in the bathroom. And the brainwave was, so I was thinking to myself, interestingly, I just thought, how many years visa do I have to the US? I've got a 5-year visa to the US. I said to myself, my next trip to the US is going to be a trip where I go and I am meeting Rich. I'm meeting Rich and the team, and I am being invited. I am spending time in these awesome rooms with this group of people. And it was just a very nice daydream. And I said, no, that's not a nice daydream. That is the dream. I'm going to add to my image. So when Steve talks about how Rich attended his coaching prosperity schools and then later started working closely with him, I was like, that's going to be amazing. How amazing is that? That's going to be super amazing. If I get to do that, that will be an honor. And so whilst keeping that image in my head, I then looked, because I'm always looking for clues. Remember, success leaves clues. I then looked out for clues and I was like, oh, wow. One of the things that Steve said Rich does is, when he's a brilliant coach. That's what he said in chapter 2, that he's a brilliant coach. By the time he interacts with other coaches, in mere minutes, he could change their view of the world from one based on fear to one full of possibility. The only thing that was missing in Rich's life was an income. And I'm quoting chapter 2 there. And I said to myself, you know what? There are so many amazing possibilities. What says that I cannot be hopping on the plane to America to have a conversation with Steve, with Rich, and the whole team? What says that? Absolutely nothing. And that's it. When I move and I shift my perspective from, oh, I absolutely can't do that, or how is that even going to be possible to you? Know what? It's possible. It's possible. It's one of the limitless possibilities that are available to me if only I want it. If only I want it. Now, interestingly, in chapter 3, when he talked about to hell with the circumstances, that's the chapter 3. And he talked about this lady who was an Olympic athlete, and he was helping her to coach around her blogs, around raising money and raising funds. And she had gotten off into, and this is a really interesting story. So she started off by selling these calendars. The calendars were $17 a piece, and she was trying to raise money. She was going to sell a whole lot of them to be able to raise money. Actually, if you do the math, if you're selling something at $17 a piece, how many of that do you need to sell to raise money? Loads. Now, obviously, what I wrote there was that's a rabbit hole. That's a rabbit hole right there, because you're not going to be able to sell enough of it in how long time in order to achieve what? So clearly. But then he got her to dive deep and ask, why was she doing all of this? What's the reason why she was doing all of this? And then she mentioned about something to do with a dream of creating a foundation that would teach children that everyone was capable of Olympic-sized feats. And I paused. And I asked myself again, why am I coaching? Why did I decide that I wanted to be a life and career coach? What's the reason? Obviously, yes, I would make loads of money. I'm £100,000 a year coach. So yeah, that's it. But why? What's the reason behind the why? And then, your quote to me that my background is in human resources, by the way. I've worked 15 years in human resources, and I had a very interesting academic background. I had a very, very poor academic result, but I refused to give up. I was still very, very insistent on being a top HR person, and I had to come from that. So I wrote it down that focus on the mission. So what is my mission? My mission is to help every HR professional around the world to achieve a successful and fulfilling HR career, regardless of their academic background. That's it. That's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it was so powerful, that shift from, how you're looking at all of the blocks and you're now getting to that position where you're saying, you know what? I am going to focus on the reason why I am doing what I am doing. The reason why I am doing what I'm doing is because I am an awesome HR professional. I want to support other HR professionals to become fulfilled, to become successful, regardless of their academic background. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. In chapter 3, Rich talked about this new coach who was working with him, who had explored websites, membership programs, SEO, building a list. Me. He was talking about me because I remember earlier this year, spending money on getting a website, starting out a membership, and I'm still broke. Anyways, and then they spent time together and he taught him everything he knew. And he said he devoured what I thought like it was information that would transform his life. And then he did something that not everyone can do with powerful information. He applied it. And I wrote down, I am number two. I am number two. I am going to be fearless in how I create clients. I'm going to allow this, this sage in me, this fearless, courageous person in me. I'm going to allow that to shine through. Now, interestingly, this was very mind blowing for me when I noticed that his own process of creating a thriving practice, he says in chapter 3, was by invitation and by referral only. So question, Rich, are you saying that there was never a time in your history of starting out your coaching business that you did cold outreach? Well, I'm going to do cold outreach. I mean, obviously, that's not to say that I can't stop something if I know it absolutely will not work, but I'm willing to give it a good try. But there was something that I read in chapter 4 that I took an instant decision on yesterday. So in chapter 4, he talked about drop the phony stuff, and he goes on to talk about how you waste time communicating without actually saying anything. You're spending time over these endless lunches, teas, breakfast, and things like that, meetups, just to, sort of prove that you're social. And he said, why are they going to pay you? That the truth is, and I'm reading from here, that this actually diminishes the chances that you will land a coaching client if you have lunch with them first and establish a relationship as a social one. So your relationship with your potential clients is not a social one. You are their coach. And that made me think, again, when he said most of the mistakes, so this is also in chapter 4, he said, most of the mistakes failed coaches make are of the information manipulation variety. What does this mean? Lots of marketing and social media posting, lots of learning about branding and niches, lots of trying to win friends and influence people. None of it works ever in the world of coaching. So I got thinking, this is interesting. Lots of marketing and social media presence. I had gone and heavily invested in getting my website done. I mean, obviously I love the website, but then I love the website. It's me. It was done for me, right? So got that done. And then I had staff who were managing my LinkedIn. I was handling my YouTube myself, but it still took a chunk of my time, and I was looking at how I could automate it and all of that. And now I'm reading, you're spending a lot of time. If you're going to build a practice, a coaching practice that was invitation and referral only, why are you spending a lot of time posting on social media and managing that marketing infrastructure arm of the business when, number one, it's not bringing in any money, number two, is taking a lot of energy, and number three, is distracting you from what you're supposed to be doing, which is actually creating connections with people that you can coach? So I sat down and said to myself, okay, you know what, this is what we're going to do. Remember in my first video, or in my second video, I talked about how I had gotten into this direct approach project. So what did I call the direct approach project? For anyone who hasn't watched that first video, the direct approach project was me reaching out to everyone who was connected to me on LinkedIn. And I think I have close to 12,000 of them. And then in my newsletter, I think I have about 4,500 or 4,700 people. So the idea was to reach out to them directly and tell them about what I was doing now. Very simple. Got the idea from Susie Moore, and I started to implement that by working with a lady who was doing that for me. Now we're in the middle of that project, right? So we're 50% gone into that project. And if anything, it's gotten the word out that people who are connected to me now know that I am offering career coaching services for HR professionals. So I said, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to not stop that project because it's 50% gone. Let's finish it up. But what we will do is that we're going to trim down. So as of this month, I've got 3 people working with me. I've got my virtual assistant who's really, really, really supportive and does amazing stuff for me. I've got somebody who's managing my LinkedIn, and I have somebody who's working with me on this direct approach project. So I said to myself that what I'm going to do is, I'd given notice to the lady who's managing my LinkedIn that we're not going to be doing that. If anything, I think my virtual assistant can do stuff. the lady who's doing the direct approach project. So I'm cutting down from 3 to 1. That's the big takeaway from chapter 4 for me. I'm cutting down from 3 staff to 1, and I am focusing more on creating connections with people and switching to this methodology where you're building an invitation and referral only coaching practice. So thank you, Rich, for sharing that with me in chapter 4. That is definitely what I am going to be doing. Then, and you know the funny thing, so let me read out my notes here. I said, this proves my point that the focus is misplaced. That's my note to myself. Less of YouTube and LinkedIn, in the sense that I think there was a time I was posting every day on YouTube, and on LinkedIn I was posting 3 times a day, 2 or 3 times a day. I'm more into deeper coaching skills and more coaching conversations. How do you turn a social relationship into a coaching relationship? That's a question that I would love to ask you, Rich, if I get the chance, when I get the chance to talk to you. Obviously, yes, I didn't know this, but if in the past you had done it yourself, how did you turn a social relationship into a coaching relationship? Is it possible to be able to make that shift? Please tell me. I would love to learn from you. Then in chapter 5, he talked about set your bar high and clear it. And he says you can be an extraordinary coach. You can be. So then he goes ahead in chapters 6 and 7 to differentiate the different types of coaches, choosing your level of engagement. So you're a pro coach, you're a part-time coach, or you're a personal growth coach, or you're a struggling coach. Then, he said, and this is where it hit it for me. This is where he hit it for me. So when he said, you can be extraordinary, this is in chapter 5, you can be extraordinary if you're willing to put in the time, educate yourself, and turn pro. Use that high bar for your success to your advantage. Be one of the committed coaches who is willing to clear that bar. And I, sort of put down the book for some minutes to reflect that exactly how far am I willing to go? Am I doing this part-time? Was my intention to do this part-time? Was my intention to do this on the side? Was my intention to do this just personally for my own professional growth or personal growth? And I reaffirmed it to myself yesterday that no, I'm in it all the way. I'm in it all the way, all through. Because I didn't 100% understand it when I was in that space, November last year, and I was, just trying to figure out what the next steps should look like, what the bigger dream was, because I had been on this route that for a long time I was chasing career success as an HR professional, but I knew that in my 40s I would love to be running a successful business, which at first I started out with HR consulting, which I did for 6 years in Nigeria, supporting small businesses with their HR needs. But now that I am in the UK, it doesn't feel like that's the thing to do. I feel more like it's doing career coaching, supporting HR professionals to be able to achieve the level of success that I have achieved in my background, despite my background. That feels more like that's the right thing to do at this point in time. But the overlaying question on top of that is, am I willing to go pro and do that fully, like become a successful top coach? If they were looking at the top 10 career coaches, would I be in that list of top 10? What would that require of me? So these were the thoughts that I had after reading, chapter 6 and chapter 7, when he talked about the 3 types of coach. You want to be a struggling coach. Of course, I don't want to be a struggling coach. I don't want to wait until everything is perfect. But, funny thing is, I saw myself in his definition of a struggling coach. So I'll read out from chapter 7 here. When he says the struggling coach wants to coach anyone and everyone. That's not me. Very early on, I knew I was going to just support HR professionals because, 3 years ago, or maybe about 3 years ago, I had supported virtually anybody, but I'd gotten past that. They're afraid to ask for the money. I still have bits of that. They want to wait until everything is perfect before they charge for coaching. They spend their time, now this is where you will find me. They spend their time, energy, and money on getting the word out. I mean, obviously, it's fantastic to have a website. Everyone will eventually have a website at some point in time, hopefully. But was that the first thing to do? So if I was to navigate, if I was to go back to maybe January this year or maybe February this year, with the new knowledge that I have now from reading this book, The Prosperous Coach, from being in the PQ program, would I want to have a website? Is that what was important, or was it important to get out there and actually build those connections? What do you think? So yeah, that was quite that was something that I really had to sit with. I probably spent about an hour and a half reading these chapters because it wasn't a speed read. There were many times I would pause, reflect, and think, you know what, did I really take the best decision? Now, I'm not in any way browbeating myself, feeling bad about it. I think every step of that journey has led me here. And that's the beautiful thing about reframing that I probably just want to quickly touch on. Every step you've taken has taken you here, has gotten you here. I am not in that frame where I'm thinking, perhaps I shouldn't have done that, I should have reworked it. No, that's not how this goes. That knowledge is adding to my sage. That knowledge, I mean, obviously those steps that I have taken has led me to this point, has led me to the point where I found PQ Coach, where I've been part of this amazing cohort 19 community, where I have met these amazing women, we formed the pod. Every step of that journey has led me here. And I'm not going to disrespect that. I'm not going to hide that, run away from that, be upset by that. Absolutely not. Because guess what? Now that it has led me here, every step is going to lead me forward to the point where I am in the US, where I'm talking to Rich, to the point where I'm taking my coaching practice international, to the point where I'm forming global connections. That's what every step that is going to take me from here on is going to be. So it's really important that if you're a fellow coach, you're looking at all of the things that you have done up until now, you're thinking to yourself, oh, maybe that wasn't, as great. If I had to go back in time, I'll take a different decision. But hey, if I had to go back in time, I would allow it to play out because I know it's leading me here. And here is a beautiful place. Here is a place of realization. Here is a place of sage. And I am so happy that I am having this, this moment. Now, the beautiful thing that I took away from this, so a key takeaway from chapter on the struggling coach was, the struggling coach thinks that because they give advice, they will be the coach without permission. I coach without permission, hands in their hair, hands on heart, I'm going to say that. And they cannot distinguish between impactful coaching and unsolicited advice. Now, the reason why I am happy to own up to the fact that, yes, I'm at this level where it's still very much of a mix in the middle for me is because I know I'm going to be awesome. I know I'm going to understand it. I'm going to understand. Like there's no way I'm not going to understand it. Continuing on this path, I'm going to understand it. I'm going to be able to distinguish between the two. I'm going to build a highly successful coaching practice. I'm going to be £100,000 a year coach. Yeah, I said that and I said it without stuttering. So that's what I'm going to do. And this learning is part of the journey. This learning is part of the journey. I'm going to start serving people. I'm going to not be afraid of, being fearless. I'm not going to be, boxing myself and saying I want to please people. Not that. I mean, looking at my saboteur reports, my people pleasing is very low. So yeah, I'm going to leverage that. I'm going to leverage that even more. And, I was just thinking to myself, it is such an amazing thing that I'm coming into this knowledge, this whole new way of thinking at this point. So just my last thoughts on chapter 7. And I wrote down here, I said, simplify. I'm going to simplify my business. And I've already started that yesterday with the conversation I had with my team. Again, there's something that I absolutely love and pride myself on. It's that ability to take action immediately. So the things that I struggle to take action on, I really wonder why. Like, I feel like I need to delve into why is it that I am very slow to send out these emails when, to be honest, I'm in a new country. and I am trying to establish my presence. So you have to, I feel like you have to do the cold outreach. That's what you do when you're doing business development. But why is it that I am still holding back and I'm still not going with it? Why? I don't know. I don't know. Do you know why? If you know why, tell me. Because it'll be interesting to, because I am an I'm an action taker. Like if you tell me something needs to get done, maybe deep down I'm not fully convinced that's what to do. But then look at it, I reached out to one person, I got a meeting lined up. There's no way, I mean, I don't know. You can see I'm clearly struggling here. You can see I'm clearly struggling. I don't know why. Should I do it? Should I not do it? If I don't do it, what's the loss? What's there to gain? If I do it, what's the loss? What's the gain? And that's the bit where, and my hesitancy to getting it done, could it be because deep down I don't believe that's the right thing to do? I don't know. Maybe a part of me is just sick and tired of doing nothing. Like I said in my last video, I'm just sick and tired of doing nothing. Like, how are people going to find me? It's not like I'm a social butterfly. I've got kids, I've got work, I've got family life, I've got my religious, I've got all of those commitments. Anyways, so just last words from me on this one in terms of what my next steps will be. Clearly, I am simplifying the business and the team. I'm not afraid to start over again, starting out right. I don't think I'm starting over in that sense. I think I'm just, going in a new direction with renewed, vigor and zest. And this thing about, the cold outreach emails, I wish, I had a bit more definitive. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do a split test and see how it goes? Because again, I feel like I can't wait for things to happen to me. And I guess that might be the overachieving, high achieving person in me, saboteur in me. Because I'm thinking, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for someone to announce that, oh, there is this awesome career coach, you need to engage her? So tell you what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to give feedback in my next, review of how many emails I've sent out. And I do hope I would have sent out a lot. And let's see how that goes. Let's track that, right? Let's track that. Because again, in thinking of the 90-day money game, just thinking about that again, my time is limited in the sense that I have a job, I've got family, I've got school runs. So to get those conversations started, maybe cold email is the way to start first. I mean, Rich, what do you think? So I'm just going to do what is in front of me right now. Take that first step. It might be imperfect, but take that first step and take it with so much confidence. And take it with the best of wishes that I will get the feedback that I need that will help me to plan my next step. That feels so much more empowering, saying that out loud like that. That feels so much more empowering. Have you been in that situation before where you're like thinking, should I not? What did you eventually do? And how is that helping your coaching business? I want to know. I really, really want to know. So that's it for now. We've done chapters 2 to 6, and I'm really, really excited. I can't wait to keep reading. Because it's helping me to think about different parts of my business, different parts of my skill development as a coach, and in addition to the PQ coaching curriculum as well. I think I'm blessed, to be honest. So if you're a new coach thinking of how to get started, please, I don't give unsolicited advice, but here is a piece of advice for you that you need to hear. You need to level up your skills. You need to be in a community of people where they know exactly what they're doing. And that I have found in the PQ coach community. Yeah, that's one advice I'm going to give you today. So till I see you next time on my review, do take care and see you. Be blessed.